The dust cloud rising from the westbound stage was the only warning Owen Barrett had before his entire life changed, though he could not have known it as he stood on the porch of the lawyer's office in Newton, Kansas, clutching a deed that promised him everything his uncle had left behind. It was June of 1882, and the summer heat pressed down on the small cattle town like a heavy blanket, making the air shimmer above the dirt street. Owen had traveled 3 weeks from Virginia, his shoulders still carrying the weight of war memories and failed ventures, hoping this inheritance might finally give him the fresh start he desperately needed. The deed specified the Thunder Creek Ranch, all livestock, all buildings, all equipment, and everything on the property as of the date of his uncle's death. Owen had read those words a dozen times on the journey west, imagining cattle and horses, maybe some chickens, perhaps a dog or two. He had not imagined a woman. The lawyer, a nervous man named Pemberton with spectacles that kept sliding down his sweating nose, had handed Owen the deed with trembling fingers and an expression that suggested he wanted to say something more, but could not find the words. Owen had asked if there was anything else he needed to know, but Pemberton had simply shaken his head and suggested Owen ride out to the ranch immediately. So Owen had collected his horse from the livery, a sturdy roan gelding he had purchased in Kansas City, and followed the directions through the rolling prairie grass toward the creek that gave the ranch its name. The ranch house came into view just as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It was a solid structure, better than Owen had expected, built from good timber with a stone chimney rising from one end. The barn stood nearby, its doors open to catch any breeze that might offer relief from the heat. Corrals stretched out behind it, and Owen could see cattle grazing in the distance, dark shapes against the golden grass. His heart lifted at the sight. This was real. This was his. After years of struggling, of watching everything he touched turn to dust, he finally had something solid beneath his feet. He dismounted near the house, noting the well-tended garden beside it, the curtains in the windows, the general air of a place that was lived in and cared for. His uncle had done well for himself out here, Owen thought. He climbed the 3 steps to the porch, his boots making solid sounds on the wood, and raised his hand to knock. Before his knuckles could connect with the door, it swung open. The woman standing in the doorway took his breath away, though not in the romantic sense that would come later. She took his breath away because she was completely unexpected, as shocking as finding an ocean in the middle of the prairie. She was young, perhaps 23 or 24, with dark chestnut hair pulled back in a practical bun, and eyes the color of whiskey in lamplight. She wore a simple calico dress, faded from washing but clean and well-maintained, and held a rifle in her hands with the easy confidence of someone who knew how to use it. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice level but with an edge that suggested she would not hesitate to raise that rifle if his answer did not satisfy her. Owen quickly removed his hat, a gesture so ingrained he did it without thinking. "My name is Owen Barrett. I am looking for the Thunder Creek Ranch." "I believe this is it." The woman's expression shifted, something complicated passing across her features too quickly for Owen to read. "It is." "Then I think there has been some confusion," Owen said carefully, very aware of the rifle. "You see, my uncle Thomas Barrett owned this ranch and he passed away last month. I am his heir. I have the deed right here." He reached slowly into his coat pocket, pulling out the folded document. "I inherited everything, and I have come to take possession of the property." The woman's face went pale, then flushed, and Owen saw her grip tighten on the rifle before she deliberately relaxed her hands and lowered the weapon. "You had better come inside," she said, her voice tight. "We need to talk." Owen followed her into the house, his mind racing with possibilities. A housekeeper, perhaps? A relative of his uncle's he had not known about. The interior of the house was neat and comfortable, furnished with solid pieces that showed care and use. The woman gestured to a chair at the kitchen table and took the seat across from him, setting the rifle within easy reach. Her hands folded on the table, and Owen could see they were trembling slightly. "My name is Lily Ashford," she said. "Or rather, it was Lily Ashford. For the past 8 months I have been Lily Barrett." The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Owen stared at her, trying to make sense of what she had just said. "I do not understand." Lily drew in a deep breath, as if steadying herself. "Your uncle and I were married last October. I am his widow." The room seemed to tilt slightly. Owen gripped the edge of the table, feeling as if the solid ground he had stood on just moments before had turned to quicksand beneath him. "Married? But I received no notice of any marriage. The lawyer said nothing about a wife." "The lawyer did not know," Lily said, and there was something bitter in her tone. "Thomas did not believe in announcing his business to the whole town. We were married by a circuit preacher who came through with just 2 ranch hands as witnesses. Thomas said he would update his will, but I suppose he never got around to it before the stroke took him." Owen looked down at the deed in his hands, at those words that suddenly took on an entirely different meaning. Everything on the property. He felt heat rise to his face as understanding dawned, followed quickly by horror and embarrassment. "Miss Ashford, I assure you, I had no idea. This is highly irregular. Obviously, I would never presume to claim ownership of a person. You are free to go wherever you wish, of course, and I will provide you with funds for travel and to help you get established." Lily's laugh was short and sharp, without humor. "Go where, exactly? I have no family left. That is why I answered your uncle's advertisement for a wife in the first place. I was working as a seamstress in St. Louis, barely making enough to pay for a room in a boarding house. When your uncle wrote that he had a successful ranch and wanted a wife to help run it, it seemed like the answer to my prayers." She looked around the kitchen, and Owen saw genuine affection in her gaze. "I have been happy here, happier than I have been in years. This ranch has become my home." "Then you should stay," Owen said quickly. The words came out before he had fully thought them through, but once spoken, he realized they made sense. "You know the property, you know how things run. I am new to all of this. I could use someone with experience." Lily's eyes narrowed slightly. "Stay in what capacity?" Owen felt his face grow even hotter. "As an employee, of course. I would pay you proper wages. You could continue living in the house. There are enough rooms that we need not, that is, I would take one of the smaller rooms, naturally, and you could keep the main bedroom." He was making a mess of this, he realized, but he pressed on. It would be a business arrangement entirely proper. For a long moment, Lily simply looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then she rose from the table and walked to the window, gazing out at the land bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. "Thomas was 67 years old," she said quietly. "Our marriage was one of convenience and companionship, nothing more. He needed someone to cook and keep house and help with the books. I needed security and a home. It worked well for both of us." She turned back to face Owen. "You are young. 30, perhaps?" 29, Owen admitted. "People will talk," Lily said bluntly. "A young man and a young woman living under the same roof, no matter how many separate bedrooms there are. Newton may be a small town, but that just means gossip travels faster." Owen had not considered that, though he should have. He stood, joining her by the window, though he kept a respectful distance between them. "What do you suggest, then?" "I am sincere in my offer. I need help running this ranch, and you deserve to keep the home you have built here. There must be some way to make this work that satisfies propriety." Lily was quiet for so long that Owen thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "The deed says you inherited everything on the property, including, apparently, a wife." She looked at him then, her whiskey-colored eyes meeting his directly. "The marriage was legal. I have the certificate to prove it. In the eyes of the law, I was property that passed to you along with the cattle and the furniture." The words made Owen feel sick. "That is barbaric. You are not property. You are a human being with rights and dignity." "Thank you for saying that," Lily said, and he heard the sincerity in her voice. "But the law sees it differently. As does society. You seem like a decent man, Owen Barrett, and I appreciate that you want to do the right thing. But if I stay here as your employee, my reputation will be destroyed within a month. No respectable man would ever consider marrying me after that, and if I leave, I will be right back where I started, alone and struggling with no prospects for the future. Then, what can we do?" Owen asked, feeling helpless. He had come west looking for a new beginning, not to complicate someone else's life. Lily turned to face him fully, squaring her shoulders in a gesture he would come to recognize as her preparing to face something difficult. "We could stay married. In name only, of course. At least until we figure out a better solution. It would satisfy propriety, protect both our reputations, and allow me to keep my home. You would have someone who knows the ranch helping you learn the business. We could live as roommates, partners in running the property." Owen's mind reeled at the suggestion. Marriage to a complete stranger. It seemed insane, and yet, as he thought about it, he could not find a better alternative that did not leave one of them in an impossible situation. "That is a lot to ask," he said slowly. "Of both of us." "I know," Lily said. "But I am asking anyway. Give it 3 months. If at the end of that time either of us wants to end the arrangement, we can seek an annulment or a divorce, and I will leave with enough money to start over somewhere else. But at least give it a chance." Owen looked out at the ranch that was now his, at the land rolling away toward the horizon, at the life he had hoped to build here. Then he looked at the woman beside him, a stranger who was somehow also his wife, who was asking him to trust her with something as precious as time and possibility. He thought about his life up to this point, about all the careful plans that had fallen apart, about the rigid expectations that had crushed him. Maybe it was time to stop planning and start living, to take a chance on something uncertain. 3 months, he agreed, extending his hand. Partners in running the ranch. Separate rooms, separate lives, but working together to make this place prosper. At the end of that time, we will reassess. Lily took his hand, her grip firm and warm. "Partners," she agreed. "Now let me show you around your property, and I will fill you in on everything you need to know." The next few days passed in a blur of information as Lily introduced Owen to the workings of Thunder Creek Ranch. There were 2 hired hands, brothers named Pete and Charlie Dawson, who lived in a bunkhouse behind the barn. They were good men, Lily assured him, loyal to the ranch and hard workers. They had been with Thomas for 5 years and knew the cattle business inside and out. There were 140 head of cattle, mostly longhorns suited to the Kansas prairie. There were 8 horses, including 2 for pulling the wagon, 4 for working cattle, and 2 personal mounts. There were chickens for eggs, a milk cow, and a pig they were fattening for autumn butchering. Lily kept meticulous books, Owen discovered, with every expense and every bit of income carefully recorded in a ledger. She showed him the accounts with a mixture of pride and nervousness, as if worried he might criticize her methods, but Owen could only admire her thoroughness. She had a head for numbers, and a practical understanding of ranch economics that he sorely lacked. "The cattle market has been good this year," she explained as they sat at the kitchen table, the ledger open between them. "We sold 40 head in the spring drive and got top dollar. That money is in the bank in town, along with what is left from the previous year." Thomas believed in keeping a reserve for hard times. "Smart," Owen said, studying the neat columns of figures. "My father was a merchant who never kept reserves. When the war came and his business collapsed, there was nothing to fall back on. I learned that lesson the hard way." Lily glanced up at him, curiosity in her eyes. "You were in the war." "I was," Owen said shortly. He did not elaborate, and Lily did not press, for which he was grateful. The war was something he preferred not to discuss, a chapter of his life filled with mud and blood and things that haunted his dreams. They fell into a routine with surprising ease. Owen took the smaller bedroom at the back of the house, barely large enough for a bed and a chest of drawers, while Lily kept the larger room she had shared with Thomas. They were both early risers, meeting in the kitchen before dawn. Lily would make coffee and breakfast while Owen brought in firewood and water from the well. They ate together in companionable silence, then went about their separate tasks for the day. Owen threw himself into learning everything he could about running a cattle ranch. He rode out with Pete and Charlie, checking fence lines and water sources, learning to read the signs of healthy cattle versus sick ones, understanding the rhythms of the land. His body, soft from years of indoor work, hardened under the physical demands. His hands developed calluses, his skin darkened from the sun, and his muscles grew accustomed to long hours in the saddle. Lily managed the house and garden with the same efficiency she brought to the books. She baked bread twice a week, the smell filling the house and making Owen's stomach growl with anticipation. She tended the vegetable garden, coaxing tomatoes and beans and squash from the prairie soil. She preserved food for winter, filling the cellar with jars of pickles and jams and vegetables. She sewed and mended, keeping both their clothes in good repair. In the evenings, they would often sit on the porch as the heat of the day faded, watching the sun set over the prairie. They talked about the ranch, about plans for the future, about practical matters and business decisions. Slowly, carefully, they began to talk about other things too. Owen told her about growing up in Virginia, about his father's store and his mother's flower garden, about his younger sister who had married a banker and moved to Baltimore. Lily spoke of her childhood in Missouri, of parents who had died in a cholera outbreak when she was 16, of years spent struggling to survive on her own. "I never thought I would end up as a mail-order bride," Lily admitted one evening as they sat watching fireflies dance above the grass. "When I was young, I had such different dreams. I wanted to be a teacher, to have a schoolhouse full of children learning their letters." "What stopped you?" Owen asked. "Life," Lily said simply. "You need money for normal school, and I had none. You need connections to get a teaching position, and I had none of those either. So I sewed dresses for women who looked through me like I was invisible, and I lived in a room so small I could touch both walls with my arms spread, and I wondered if that was all my life would ever be." Owen heard the pain beneath her matter-of-fact words. "Do you still want to teach?" Lily was quiet for a moment. "I do not know anymore. I love this ranch. I love the work, the land, the feeling of building something. Maybe I found a different dream out here." "Dreams can change," Owen said. "That is not a bad thing." As June turned into July, Owen found himself noticing things about Lily he had not paid attention to at first. The way she hummed while she worked in the garden. The way she squinted slightly when she was concentrating on the ledger, suggesting she needed spectacles but was too proud or too poor to get them. The way she laughed at Charlie's terrible jokes, a full, genuine sound that made others want to laugh along with her. The way she moved with grace and purpose, every action efficient but never rushed. He noticed, too, that she was beautiful, though he tried not to dwell on that fact. They were partners in a business arrangement, nothing more. It would be inappropriate to think of her any other way. But sometimes, when the lamplight caught her face just right, or when she smiled at something he said, he felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the summer heat. Lily, for her part, was acutely aware of Owen in ways that confused and frightened her. She had not expected to like him, this stranger who had inherited her along with the furniture. She had expected him to be angry about the situation, or to be demanding, or to look at her in ways that made her skin crawl. Instead, he was kind. He was respectful. He listened when she spoke and valued her opinions. He worked hard and did not complain, even when she could see the work was taking a toll on his body that was not yet accustomed to ranch labor. She caught herself watching him sometimes, admiring the way he sat a horse or the concentration on his face when he was learning a new skill. She noticed that his hair was dark brown with strands of auburn that caught the sunlight, and that his eyes were gray like storm clouds, and that he had a small scar above his left eyebrow that she wanted to ask about but did not. This was dangerous territory, Lily knew. She had married Thomas with clear expectations on both sides. Companionship, security, partnership in work, but nothing romantic. It had been comfortable and safe. What she was beginning to feel for Owen was neither comfortable nor safe. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into unknown depths and feeling the terrible temptation to jump. The first real test of their partnership came in mid-July when a drought threatened the water supply. The creek that gave the ranch its name began to run low, and the cattle grew restless. Owen called a meeting with Pete, Charlie, and Lily to discuss their options. "We could drive the herd up to the northern pasture," Pete suggested. "There is a good water source there, fed by a spring that never runs dry." "That is a full day's drive," Lily pointed out, "and the northern pasture does not have as much grass. We would need to supplement their feed." "What about digging the creek deeper?" Owen asked. "Would that help?" Charlie shook his head. "Might get us a bit more water, but if the drought continues, it will just run dry faster. Better to move the cattle to where the water is." They debated for over an hour, weighing the pros and cons of each option. Owen listened carefully to everyone's input, asking questions when he did not understand something, deferring to their experience but also contributing his own observations. Finally, he made the decision. "We will split the herd," he said. "Take half to the northern pasture where the water is reliable. Keep half here where the grass is better. That way we balance our resources and reduce the risk if something goes wrong with either location." Pete and Charlie exchanged glances, then nodded. "Smart thinking, boss," Pete said. The next day, they began the drive. Owen and Charlie took 70 head north while Pete stayed behind to manage the remaining cattle. Lily insisted on going along, arguing that they needed someone to handle the wagon with supplies and that she was as capable as anyone. The drive was hot, dusty, and exhausting. The cattle were cranky from the heat and the lack of water, fighting the push north at every step. Owen worked tirelessly, riding up and down the small herd, keeping stragglers in line, working with Charlie to maintain control. Lily drove the wagon, keeping pace with the slow-moving cattle, and when they finally stopped for a brief rest at midday, she had food ready for the men. "You are good at this," Owen said as he accepted a sandwich from her, his face streaked with dust and sweat. "Thomas taught me," Lily said. He believed everyone on the ranch should know every job in case of emergencies. I have been on half a dozen drives with him." They reached the northern pasture as the sun was setting, and the cattle immediately spread out, heading for the spring-fed pond. Owen and Charlie worked to set up a temporary camp, while Lily got a fire going and started preparing a hot meal. They would stay here for a few days. Owen had decided, making sure the cattle settled in, and that there were no problems with the new location. That night, after they had eaten and Charlie had rolled into his bedding and begun to snore, Owen and Lily sat by the fire. The stars were spectacular this far from town, filling the sky from horizon to horizon. "You ever miss Virginia?" Lily asked quietly. Owen considered the question. "I miss my mother and sister," he said. "I miss the green sometimes. Virginia is so lush compared to here. But do I miss my old life? No, I was suffocating there trying to be what everyone expected me to be. My father wanted me to take over the store, but I had no talent for it. After he died and the business failed, everyone looked at me like I had failed them personally. Coming here, starting fresh, it feels like I can finally breathe." "I understand that," Lily said. "The feeling of not fitting where you are supposed to be, of disappointing people just by being yourself." Owen looked at her across the firelight. "You do not disappoint me, Lily. I want you to know that. This arrangement, it may have started in the strangest way possible, but I am grateful for it. For you." Lily felt her breath catch. "I am grateful too," she said softly. "You could have sent me away." "Many men would have." "I am not many men," Owen said. "No," Lily agreed, her eyes meeting his. "You are not." Something passed between them in that moment, something neither was ready to name but both felt. The air seemed charged with possibility, with the recognition that what had started as a business arrangement was slowly becoming something else. The next morning, they woke to find 2 of the cattle missing. Owen and Charlie immediately set out to search for them, leaving Lily at the camp. They found the animals 3 miles away, having wandered through a gap in the natural barriers that define the pasture. As they worked to drive the cattle back, one of them, a young bull, decided to make a run for it. What happened next occurred in seconds, but seemed to Owen to unfold in slow motion. The bull charged directly at Charlie's horse. Charlie tried to turn aside, but the bull's horns caught the horse's flank, sending both horse and rider tumbling. Charlie hit the ground hard and did not move. Owen did not think, he simply reacted. He rode between the bull and the fallen Charlie, drawing the animal's attention to himself. The bull pawed the ground, lowered its head, and charged. Owen's horse, well-trained and experienced, danced aside at the last moment, letting the bull's momentum carry it past. Owen quickly roped the bull, pulling the rope tight and turning his horse to drag the animal in the opposite direction from Charlie. It took 20 minutes of dangerous, exhausting work, but Owen finally got the bull under control and secured. Then he raced back to where Charlie lay. The hired hand was conscious but groggy, with a nasty gash on his head and a broken arm. "Stay still," Owen ordered, dismounting quickly. "Let me check you over before you move." Charlie's horse had gotten to its feet and limped away, injured but not critically. Owen carefully examined Charlie, relieved to find that aside from the arm and the head wound, there seemed to be no serious damage. He fashioned a sling from his bandana and helped Charlie mount his own horse, then led them both carefully back to camp. Lily took one look at Charlie and immediately took charge. She cleaned and bandaged the head wound, properly splinted the broken arm, and insisted Charlie rest while she and Owen finished securing the herd. That evening, they made the decision to head back to the ranch. Charlie needed proper medical attention, and they had done what they came to do. The ride back was slower, with Charlie riding in the wagon and both Owen and Lily working to keep the cattle moving. By the time they reached Thunder Creek Ranch, Owen was exhausted to his bones, but he felt a sense of accomplishment he had rarely experienced. He had handled a crisis. He had protected his people and his property. He had acted like a real rancher. Pete helped them get Charlie settled and rode to town to fetch the doctor. While they waited, Lily made coffee and brought Owen a cup as he sat on the porch, watching the sunset. "That was brave, what you did today," she said, sitting beside him. "Charlie could have been killed if you had not drawn that bull away." "It was instinct," Owen said. "I did not really think about it." "That is what makes it brave," Lily said. "You did not hesitate. You put yourself in danger to protect someone else." She was quiet for a moment, then added, "Thomas would have been proud of you. This ranch is in good hands." Owen turned to look at her, surprised by the emotion in her voice. "That means a lot coming from you." "I mean it," Lily said. "When you first arrived, I did not know what to expect. I was terrified, actually. I thought you might be cruel or dismissive, or that you would see me as a burden to be rid of as quickly as possible. Instead, you have been kind and respectful and hard-working. You have made this partnership work, Owen. We both have." "We have," Owen agreed. He wanted to say more, wanted to tell her that she had become important to him in ways that went beyond their business arrangement, but the words stuck in his throat. It was too soon, too complicated. So instead, he simply sat with her in companionable silence, watching the day fade into night. As July turned into August, the relationship between Owen and Lily continued to deepen. They worked together seamlessly now, each anticipating the other's needs and thoughts. Owen found that he looked forward to mealtimes, to the conversations they shared, to the sound of Lily's voice. He found himself seeking reasons to be near her, to work alongside her in the garden, or to ask her opinion on matters he could easily have decided himself. Lily, too, found herself drawn to Owen more each day. She loved the way he treated the animals with gentle firmness, never cruel but always in control. She loved the way he listened when she spoke, really listened, considering her words carefully before responding. She loved the way he looked in the morning light, the way he smiled when something pleased him, the way he had slowly become essential to her happiness. They were falling in love, though neither said it aloud. The knowledge hung between them, unspoken but present, adding weight to every glance, every accidental touch, every shared laugh. The turning point came in late August during the county fair in Newton. Lily had entered some of her preserves in the competition, and Owen insisted they both attend to see how she fared. They rode into town in the wagon, dressed in their best clothes, and joined the crowds milling around the various exhibitions and contests. Lily's strawberry jam won second prize, and her pickles took first. Owen watched her face light up with pride and pleasure, and his heart swelled. He wanted to see that expression on her face every day for the rest of his life. They were walking through the fairgrounds, admiring a display of farm equipment, when they ran into the lawyer Pemberton and his wife. The older woman looked at Lily with open curiosity. "Mrs. Barrett," Pemberton said, nodding to Lily. "And Mr. Barrett. I trust you both are finding the ranch to your satisfaction." "Very much so," Owen said carefully. He and Lily had agreed to present themselves publicly as a married couple, but this was the first real test of that decision. "How lovely that Thomas's widow and his heir have found a way to make things work," Mrs. Pemberton said, her tone suggesting she found the situation anything but lovely. "Though I must say, it is quite an unusual arrangement." "Not so unusual," Lily said calmly, though Owen could see the tension in her shoulders. "I am managing the household while Owen learns the ranch business. It is a practical solution that benefits us both." "Oh, I am sure it is very practical," Mrs. Pemberton said with a meaningful look. "Still, One cannot help but wonder what people might think, a young widow and a young bachelor under the same roof. Owen felt anger rise in his chest, but before he could speak, Lily laid a hand on his arm. "People will think what they wish to think, Mrs. Pemberton. Owen and I know the truth of our arrangement, and that is all that matters." As they walked away, Owen could feel the heat of rage still burning inside him. "How dare she?" he muttered. "As if our relationship is anyone's business but our own." "Let it go," Lily said, though her voice shook slightly. "She is not the first to make such insinuations, and she will not be the last." "That does not make it right," Owen said. He stopped walking, turning to face Lily directly. "You deserve better than gossip and judgment. You deserve respect." "Life rarely gives us what we deserve," Lily said quietly. "We make do with what we have." Looking at her standing there in the sunlight, her chin raised defiantly despite the pain he could see in her eyes, Owen made a decision. "Lily, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" Owen took a breath, knowing he was about to change everything between them but unable to hold back any longer. "These past 2 months have been the best of my life. Not just because of the ranch, but because of you. I wake up eager to start the day because I know I will see you. I find excuses to work near you just so I can hear your voice. When you smile at me, I feel like I could take on the world. I know we agreed this was a temporary arrangement, a business partnership, but I do not want temporary anymore. I want permanent. I want real. I am in love with you, Lily. I think I have been for weeks now, but I was too afraid to say it." Lily stared at him, her eyes wide with shock. For a terrible moment, Owen thought he had made a horrible mistake, that he had ruined everything with his confession. Then tears began to roll down her cheeks. "Owen," she whispered, "I love you too. I have been so frightened to let myself feel it, so sure that it could not be real, that you could not possibly feel the same way. But I do. I love you so much it terrifies me." Owen reached out and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks with his thumbs. "Do not be afraid. Whatever happens, we will face it together." "People will talk," Lily said. "They will say terrible things. They will say I seduced you, that I trapped you into this marriage." "Let them talk," Owen said fiercely. "I do not care what anyone else thinks. I care about you, only you." He paused, then added, "That is, if you want this, if you want us. I will not pressure you into anything. If you want to keep things as they are, I will respect that." "No," Lily said quickly. "No, I do not want things to stay as they are. I want more. I want everything. I want a real marriage with you, Owen. I want to fall asleep beside you and wake up in your arms. I want to build a life together, not just a business. I want to love you openly, completely, without holding back." Owen felt joy surge through him, so intense it was almost painful. He pulled Lily into his arms, holding her close, feeling her heart beat against his chest. "Then that is what we will have," he promised. "Starting right now." He kissed her then, there in the middle of the fairgrounds with people passing by on all sides. It was their first kiss, and it felt like coming home, like finding something he had been searching for his entire life without knowing it. Lily kissed him back with equal passion, her arms wrapping around his neck, and for that perfect moment, nothing else existed but the two of them. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless and grinning, Owen said, "We should go home." "Yes," Lily agreed, her eyes shining. "Let us go home." The ride back to the ranch seemed to take forever. They sat close together on the wagon seat, Lily's hand in Owen's, talking about everything and nothing. They talked about their future, about the children they might have someday, about growing old together on the ranch they both loved. They talked about fears and hopes and dreams, laying bare their hearts to each other. When they finally reached the ranch, the sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and gold. Owen helped Lily down from the wagon, then swept her up into his arms, carrying her across the threshold of the house like a proper bride. Lily laughed, the sound pure and joyful. "Owen Barrett, put me down," she said, though she made no real effort to escape. "Not yet," Owen said, kicking the door closed behind them. "I have waited long enough to do this properly. Let me have this moment." He carried her through the house to the large bedroom that had been Lily's alone for the past 2 months. Setting her gently on her feet, he cupped her face in his hands, suddenly serious. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "Once we take this step, there is no going back. We will be truly married in every sense of the word." "I am sure," Lily said, her voice steady and certain. "I want this. I want you. I have never been more sure of anything in my life." They came together with a mixture of tenderness and passion, two people who had found in each other something rare and precious. The walls that had separated them, the careful distance they had maintained, all fell away. They learned each other with gentle touches and whispered words, taking their time, savoring every moment. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the bed, Lily's head on Owen's chest, his arms wrapped securely around her. "I cannot believe this is real," Lily murmured. "I keep thinking I will wake up and find it was all a dream." "It is real," Owen assured her, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "As real as anything I have ever known. You are my wife, Lily, not because a deed said so, but because I choose you, because you choose me. That is what makes it real." "I do choose you," Lily said. "Every day, for the rest of my life, I choose you." They drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, the windows open to let in the cool night breeze, the sounds of the prairie a gentle lullaby. The next morning, Owen woke to find Lily already awake, propped up on one elbow, watching him with a soft smile. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," Owen replied, reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "Have you been awake long?" "A little while," Lily admitted. "I was just thinking how different everything looks now. This room, this bed, they are the same as they were yesterday, but they feel completely new." "Everything is new," Owen agreed. "We get to start fresh, build the life we want together." They spent the morning in a pleasant haze, moving slowly, stealing kisses in the kitchen, laughing at nothing in particular. Pete and Charlie, when they saw them together, exchanged knowing glances but said nothing, though both men were grinning. Over the following weeks, Owen and Lily settled into their new reality as a truly married couple. They moved Owen's few belongings into the large bedroom, combining their lives in physical space as they had already combined them in every other way. They worked side by side during the day, and at night they retreated to their room, shutting out the world to focus on each other. The gossip in town did intensify, as Lily had predicted. There were whispers about the indecent haste of their relationship, speculation about the nature of their marriage to Thomas, cruel suggestions about Lily's character. Owen learned to ignore it, as did Lily, but it was not always easy. The situation came to a head in September when they attended church in town. Owen and Lily sat together in a pew near the back, and Owen could feel the stares, could hear the whispers. After the service, as they were leaving, an older woman named Mrs. Henderson blocked their path. "I think it is disgraceful," she said loudly enough for others to hear. "Poor Thomas barely cold in his grave, and his widow has already moved on to a younger man. It is unseemly." Owen opened his mouth to respond, but Lily squeezed his hand and spoke first. "Mrs. Henderson, I understand your concern, and I appreciate that you cared for Thomas. He was a good man, and I mourned his loss. But Thomas and I had an understanding, and he would have wanted me to be happy. Owen makes me happy. Our marriage is legal and proper, and I will not apologize for finding love." "Love," Mrs. Henderson scoffed. "You barely know the man. Thomas has only been gone 4 months. "Sometimes," Lily said calmly, "you do not need years to know someone is right for you. Sometimes you just know." Thomas taught me that. He proposed marriage after 3 letters and 1 brief meeting, and he turned out to be exactly the kind, honest man I needed. Owen is the same. I am fortunate to have found 2 good men in one lifetime. Owen felt pride swell in his chest at Lily's words. She was magnificent, standing there defending their love with grace and dignity. Mrs. Henderson clearly had more to say, but the pastor intervened, gently guiding the older woman away and offering Owen and Lily an apologetic smile. As they walked back to their wagon, Lily was shaking. "I hate confrontation," she admitted. "You handled that beautifully," Owen assured her. "You were perfect." "I just want to live our life without everyone judging us," Lily said. "Then let us do that," Owen suggested. "Let us stop coming to town unless we absolutely must. Let us focus on the ranch, on building our life together, and let the gossips gossip. Eventually, they will find something else to talk about." That became their pattern. They minimized their trips to Newton, ordering supplies to be delivered when possible, keeping to themselves at Thunder Creek Ranch. It was not isolation exactly. Pete and Charlie were there, and occasionally they had visits from neighboring ranchers. But Owen and Lily created a world of their own, one where outside opinions did not matter, where they were free to love each other without judgment. As September turned into October, they celebrated the anniversary of Lily's marriage to Thomas with quiet reflection. Owen had worried it might be an awkward day, but Lily insisted on acknowledging it. "Thomas gave me this home," she said. "He gave me security when I had none. He treated me with kindness and respect. I will always be grateful to him, and I will not pretend he did not exist just because you and I have fallen in love. He was part of my journey to you." "You are right," Owen said. "We should honor his memory. Without his generosity in advertising for a wife, without his choice to leave me this ranch, we never would have met." They visited Thomas's grave together, laying flowers and spending a few quiet moments in remembrance. Then they returned home to continue building the life Thomas had helped make possible. The cattle needed to be brought down from the northern pasture before winter set in, so in mid-October, they organized another drive. This time, Lily stayed at the ranch while Owen, Pete, and Charlie made the journey. Owen found he missed her terribly during the 3 days he was gone, and when he returned, he swept her into his arms, kissing her thoroughly despite Pete and Charlie's good-natured catcalls. "I am never leaving you for that long again," Owen declared. 3 days is not that long," Lily laughed. "It felt like 3 years, Owen said. "I counted the hours." As winter approached, they prepared the ranch for the cold months ahead. They butchered the pig and smoked the meat. They made sure the barn was tight and secure. They stocked up on firewood and supplies. They moved the cattle to the winter pasture where they would have shelter from the worst of the storms. On the first real snowfall in late November, Owen and Lily stood on the porch, watching the white flakes drift down from a gray sky. "I have never seen snow like this," Lily said wonderingly. "In Missouri, we got snow, but nothing like what they say Kansas winters can bring." "I am told the prairie winters can be brutal," Owen said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "But we have everything we need. A solid house, plenty of food, fuel for the fire. We will be fine." "We will be fine," Lily echoed, snuggling into his warmth, "because we have each other." That winter tested them, but not in the ways Owen had feared. The snow did come, heavy and frequent, and there were days when leaving the house was nearly impossible. But inside, the house was warm and cozy. Owen and Lily spent long evenings by the fire, reading aloud to each other from the few books they had, playing cards, talking about everything and nothing. They grew even closer during those months of forced proximity, learning each other's rhythms and moods, learning to exist comfortably in shared space. Owen taught Lily to play chess using a set he had brought from Virginia, and she surprised him by becoming quite good at it. Lily taught Owen to knit, and though his first attempts were disastrous, he eventually managed to produce a passable scarf. On Christmas, they exchanged simple gifts. Owen gave Lily a pair of spectacles he had secretly ordered from Kansas City after noticing how she squinted when reading. Lily gave Owen a new leather journal and a fine pen, having noticed how he sometimes wrote down his thoughts in the evening but used scraps of paper because he claimed not to need anything better. "These are too expensive," Owen protested when he saw the quality of the journal and pen. "They are exactly what you need," Lily insisted. "You have thoughts worth preserving properly, Owen. Do not hide them away on scraps of paper like they do not matter. They matter. You matter." Owen pulled her into his arms, overcome with emotion. "I love you so much," he said. "Sometimes I feel like my heart cannot hold it all." "Then share it with me," Lily said. "I will help you carry it." As the new year of 1883 began, Owen reflected on how much his life had changed in just 7 months. He had come to Kansas as a failure, a man running from a past full of disappointment. He had expected to find a ranch and a chance to start over. Instead, he had found a home, a purpose, and a love that transformed everything. In January, Lily realized she was pregnant. She told Owen one evening as they sat by the fire, her voice tentative, her hands twisting together nervously. "I think I am with child," she said quietly. Owen's heart seemed to stop, then start again, beating triple time. "Are you certain?" "Not completely certain yet, but all the signs are there. I am tired all the time, my courses have stopped, and this morning I was sick." She looked up at him, worry in her eyes. "I know we have not been married very long. I know this might seem too soon. But I want you to know that I am happy about it, scared but happy." Owen crossed to her in 2 strides, kneeling before her chair and taking her hands in his. "I am happy too," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Scared and happy. We are going to be parents, Lily." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. "We are going to be parents," she repeated, as if testing the words. They held each other for a long time, and Owen felt a sense of completeness he had never experienced before. This was what life was supposed to be. This connection, this love, this promise of the future growing inside the woman he adored. The pregnancy was not easy. Lily was sick frequently in the early months, and Owen worried constantly. He took over more of the household tasks, insisting Lily rest whenever possible. He hovered, he fussed, he drove her slightly crazy with his concern. "Owen," she finally said in exasperation one day in March, "I am pregnant, not made of glass. Women have been doing this since the beginning of time. I can still cook dinner without collapsing." "I know," Owen said sheepishly. "I just want to take care of you." "You do take care of me," Lily assured him, her tone softening. "Every single day. But I also need to feel useful. Let me do what I can, and I promise I will ask for help when I need it." They found a balance, as they had with everything else. As spring came and Lily's belly grew round with their child, Owen found himself constantly amazed by the miracle of it all. He would lie with his hand on her stomach at night, feeling the baby move, overwhelmed by the reality of the life they had created. "What do you hope for?" Lily asked one evening as they lay in bed, the windows open to let in the fresh spring air. "A boy or a girl, healthy," Owen said immediately. "That is all I care about, a healthy baby and a healthy wife at the end of this." "Besides that," Lily pressed, "if you could choose." Owen considered. "I think a boy first would be nice, someone to help with the ranch as he grows. But truly, Lily, I will be thrilled either way." "I think I want a boy first too," Lily admitted, "though I cannot say exactly why, just a feeling." As it turned out, their feelings were correct. In early August of 1883, after a long and difficult labor that left Owen pacing the floor in terror while the doctor and a midwife from town tended to Lily, their son was born. Owen was finally allowed into the room to find Lily exhausted but radiant, cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. "Come meet your son," Lily said softly. Owen approached on shaking legs, looking down at the tiny, red-faced baby in Lily's arms. His son. The word seemed impossible, too big to comprehend. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was wailing with impressive volume. "He has good lungs," Owen said, then laughed at the absurdity of the statement. Tears were streaming down his face, though he barely noticed them. "Would you like to hold him?" Lily asked. Owen had never held a baby before, but he took his son carefully, supporting the small head as Lily instructed. The baby stopped crying, perhaps surprised by the change, and opened dark blue eyes that seemed to look directly at Owen. "Hello," Owen whispered. "I am your father. I am going to do my very best by you, I promise." They named him Thomas Owen Barrett, honoring both the man who had made their meeting possible and ensuring that Owen's name would carry forward. Little Thomas was a good baby, or so the midwife assured them. He ate well and grew quickly, and though he cried plenty, he also spent long periods simply observing the world around him with solemn eyes. Owen had never known he could love anything as much as he loved his son. He would stand over the cradle they had set up in their bedroom, just watching Thomas sleep, marveling at every tiny feature. He changed diapers without complaint, walked the floor with the baby when he was fussy, sang off-key lullabies that somehow soothed the child even if they were not particularly melodious. Lily watched her husband transform into a father with a full heart. Owen was attentive and gentle and endlessly patient, even when exhausted from a full day of ranch work. Many men would have left all the baby care to their wives, but Owen insisted on doing his share. "He is my son too," Owen said when Lily suggested he was doing too much. "I want to be part of every moment, every milestone. I do not want to be the kind of father who is just a distant figure. I want Thomas to know I love him, that I am here for him always." As Thomas grew from a newborn into a chubby, smiling baby, the ranch continued to prosper. Owen had truly come into his own as a rancher, making smart decisions about the herd, about the land, about the business. He and Lily made a formidable team, balancing each other's strengths and weaknesses, working together to build something lasting. In the fall of 1883, Owen hired a third ranch hand, a young man named Jacob who was eager to learn and willing to work hard. The extra help meant Owen could spend more time helping Lily with Thomas, and it meant they could expand their herd by another 50 head. On a crisp October evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset with Thomas sleeping peacefully in Lily's arms, Owen reflected on the past 16 months. "You remember when we agreed to give this 3 months?" he asked. "When we said we would be partners in running the ranch and reassess after that." "I remember," Lily said. "I was so scared you would decide you wanted me to leave." "I knew by the end of the first month that I would never want you to leave," Owen admitted. "I just did not have the courage to say it yet." "When did you know you loved me?" Lily asked. Owen thought back. "There was not one single moment. It was 1,000 small moments. The way you handed me my coffee in the morning, the way you laughed at Charlie's jokes, the way you stood up to Mrs. Pemberton at the fair, the way you looked at sunset. I fell in love with you piece by piece, moment by moment, until one day I realized I could not imagine my life without you in it. For me, it was when you risked yourself to save Charlie," Lily said. "Not that I did not care for you before that, but when I saw you put yourself in danger without hesitation, when I realized you could have been killed, I knew. I knew I loved you and that I would be devastated if I lost you." You will never lose me, Owen promised. I am yours, Lily, for as long as I live. You and Thomas, you are my everything. As if he heard his name, Thomas stirred in Lily's arms, opening his eyes and looking up at his parents. Owen reached over to stroke the baby's soft cheek with one finger. You think we should have more children? Lily asked. I know Thomas is still so young, but I find myself already thinking about it. I would love more children, Owen said. As many as you are willing to have. I want this house full of life and laughter. Then we will fill it, Lily said, smiling. In time. The years that followed were good ones. Thomas grew into a bright, curious toddler, then an energetic little boy. In 1885, Lily gave birth to their daughter, whom they named Elizabeth Rose, called Eliza by everyone. In 1887, another son arrived, Samuel Robert. In 1889, a second daughter, Margaret Ann, called Maggie, completed their family. The house that had once seemed so large and quiet was now constantly filled with noise and activity. Children laughing, crying, playing, arguing, making up. Owen and Lily navigated parenthood together, sometimes exhausted, often overwhelmed, but always united in their love for each other and their children. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Owen became known in the county as a fair and honest rancher, someone who treated his employees well and conducted business with integrity. He served on the local Cattlemen's Association, helping to advocate for fair prices and good practices. Lily, for her part, became the heart of the household. She managed the complex task of running a home with 4 children, keeping the books, preserving food, sewing clothes, teaching the children their letters and numbers until they were old enough to attend the small school that had been built in Newton. She also found time to pursue her old dream of teaching, offering lessons to any neighboring children whose parents wanted extra schooling for them. On their 10th anniversary in August of 1893, Owen and Lily took a rare evening to themselves, leaving the children with Pete's wife, Sarah, who had moved to the ranch when Pete and Charlie built small houses for their families on the property. They rode out to a high point on the ranch where they could see for miles in every direction. The sun was setting, painting the sky in the brilliant colors that never failed to take Owen's breath away. Lily, Owen said, taking her hand, I want to say something, and I need you to just listen for a moment. Lily looked at him with curiosity but nodded. I came to Kansas 11 years ago with nothing but grief, failure, and desperate hope. I thought I was coming here for land, for a fresh start, for a chance to prove I was not the failure everyone thought I was. But I was not coming here for any of those things, not really. I was coming here for you. I just did not know it yet. He paused, gathering his thoughts. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You are the reason I wake up grateful every morning. You are the reason I work so hard, the reason I push myself to be better. You made me a husband, a father, a man I can be proud of. I love you more today than I did the day I first told you I loved you at that fair, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for being mine. Tears streamed down Lily's face. Owen, you give me too much credit. Everything we have built, we built together. Yes, I chose you, but you chose me too. You took a strange situation and turned it into something beautiful. You loved me when I was still grieving another man. You gave me children and a home and a life beyond anything I ever dreamed possible. She squeezed his hand. I love you, Owen Barrett. I loved you when you were a stranger who unexpectedly inherited a wife. I loved you when you were learning to be a rancher and falling off horses. I loved you when you became a father and cried the first time Thomas smiled at you. I love you now, and I will love you always. They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, Two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way and built something lasting and true. The years continued to pass. Thomas grew into a young man who was the very image of his father, with the same gray eyes and the same quiet competence. He took to ranch work naturally, and by the time he was 16, he was as capable as any of the hired hands. Eliza inherited her mother's head for numbers and took over managing the books when Lily's eyes grew too tired for the close work. Samuel, adventurous and restless, talked of seeing the world beyond Kansas, but always came back to the ranch in the end. Maggie, the baby, was as fierce and independent as her mother, determined to do everything her brothers could do and usually succeeding. In 1900, as the new century began, Owen and Lily stood together at the grave of Thomas Barrett, Owen's uncle and Lily's first husband. They came here once a year, a tradition they had maintained since that first October after they fell in love. "You think he knew?" Lily asked quietly. "When he left the ranch to Owen, do you think he suspected what would happen?" "I do not know," Owen said. "Maybe Thomas was a smart man. Maybe he saw something in that deed that we did not, something that would bring two lonely people together. Or maybe it was just fate, coincidence, the universe working in mysterious ways." "Whatever it was, I am grateful," Lily said. "Every single day I am grateful." They walked back to their wagon hand in hand, their children waiting for them. Thomas, now 18, held the reins. Eliza, 15, was reading a book. Samuel, 13, and Maggie, 11, were bickering good-naturedly about something insignificant. "Ready to go home?" Owen asked. "Always ready to go home," Lily said. Home was the Thunder Creek Ranch, the place where an inheritance had turned into a love story, where a deed had brought together two people who needed each other in ways they had not even known. Home was the house they had filled with children and laughter, the land they had worked and nurtured, the life they had built from unexpected beginnings. As they drove back across the prairie, the sun warm on their faces and their family around them, Owen thought about that day 11 years ago when he had arrived at this ranch expecting cattle and horses and found a wife instead. He thought about how angry he could have been, how complicated he could have made things, how differently it all could have gone. Instead, he had found love. He had found purpose. He had found home. And as Lily leaned against his shoulder, their children's voices rising and falling in conversation behind them, Owen knew with absolute certainty that he would not change a single thing. Every moment, every choice, every unexpected turn had led him here, to this life, to this family, to this woman who was still, after all these years, the very center of his world. The deed had said he inherited a ranch and everything on it. What it had not said, what it could not have said, was that he would inherit a future beyond his wildest dreams, a love that would sustain him through all the years to come, and a happiness so deep and complete that sometimes it brought him to tears. But that was exactly what had happened. And as the Thunder Creek Ranch faded into view, its buildings solid and welcoming against the endless Kansas sky, Owen tightened his arm around his wife and smiled. He was home. He was loved. He was exactly where he was meant to be, and that, he thought, was the greatest inheritance of all.